Jacob Kingsbury-Downs.
Hi, Jack.
It's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, so nice to be here.
What's happening? What's new?
Well, I've never been to a manor house before.
Ever?
No.
You dress like you, huh?
Oh, thanks, babe.
The philosophy of headphones, we're lost, aren't we?
We are a little bit.
It feels too early in this series to be doing such a niche topic, but it's bloody interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting, but, you know, to be honest, alongside some of the people you've got on this series, I'm not really sure why I'm here.
Oh. Are you saying that they're too lower quality for your for your liking?
I don't know, I suppose we just worship different gods.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Or no gods. Some people could do with belief in God because they're so bloody rude on public transport that they don't realise that there's such a thing as headphones, and what the kids are calling loudcast. Now, if someone's loudcasting in a carriage, I'll go into a different carriage. I once heard somebody say, "Hey mate, I'm trying to work here. Can you put some headphones in?" And he put some headphones in. And I thought that was really bold, and I admired him for doing it, but I don't have the character. So I'll just move and scowl. Why is loudcasting so annoying, and how do you deal with loudcasters?
It's the question, isn't it? I do think every bit of research I've ever done comes out of me just being frustrated with something. So sort of, you know, on the bus, listening to somebody scroll through social media. I think that's the worst one.
Yeah.
You've kind of got this algorithm pouring out these tiny little sounds. You know, you're not getting the pleasure of it all. I kind of just wanted to ask them, why are you doing that? I don't know. I don't want to be moralizing about it, you know, but it is quite annoying.
I think it's immoral as well, isn't it? It shows an obnoxiousness, a selfishness, a lack of I don't know, care for other people and consideration for them. Or do you think they're just, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't register as a thing? Maybe they're not doing it knowingly.
I think it is a mixture of the two. I think there is certainly a case to be made for a lot of these sounds or a lot of these practices actually being about kind of trying to get a bit of space, you know, trying to territorialize in some kind of way. We've seen over history, you know, even more recent history, like boombox culture, right?
Yeah.
There's this kind of sense of a communal space that is forged through sound. But this seems a bit different. It seems a little bit like these tiny little speakers, these kind of miniature amplifiers that we've got going around with us. They are the things that are kind of leading us to be in these tiny pockets of sound, turning into this tinny atmosphere of, well, it's just quite horrible, really, isn't it?
Why does it rub against us in the wrong way, though, like phenomenologically? Why does it feel... Why is it so off-putting? Like there are sounds, like the sound of the bus going along the road, the sound of people chatting quietly in the background. They're fine. We can deal with them. In the very distant here, we can hear birds chirping very softly. I can hear, your breath. Right, that's all fine.
Yeah.
But why is it when someone's playing something out loud on their phone, then suddenly it bugs me? Like, what's going on psychologically?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think the thing from talking to people, we've done this survey now of over 2,500 people of trying to work out why are they feeling.
And this is an Oxford University.
This is an Oxford University. They'll fund anything these days, won't they? Yeah. No, but yeah. So we've been sort of asking people what it is about it, and we've sort of realised that loudcasting doesn't seem like the best term in that it's not usually about being that loud. Often it's quite quiet sounds, but it's about the kind of sound. It's specifically about what we would call the timbre of the sound, the sort of the colour of the sound. And it's tinny. There's a really tinny sound to it. And to me, it seems as though, you know, our auditory apparatuses, as brilliant as they are, as you say, used to sounds in our natural environment, things that don't sound quite as tinny, quite as... I don't know, it attracts our attention in that way. So the thing is that it doesn't need to be particularly loud to take up space when it's tinny in this way. It's just annoying. It's not the same thing as listening to people having a chat in your environment. It sort of pecks at your ears a little bit.
Something's pecking at my ears, which is how wrong what you just said is. That doesn't seem on the right note at all. You seem to be singing from a very different hymn sheet. I'm going to do about 10 more of them. It doesn't matter that the sound's tinny, right? Because if someone was on the bus and they had you said a boom box. If they had a boom box and the audio quality was marvelous, it could be the best speaker that I've ever heard. If someone's playing it around me and I haven't asked them to do it, I want them to stop. It doesn't. In fact, I think it was more obnoxious that they went through and got a really good speaker to do it, because it's so deliberate then.
But wouldn't it just be, it is obnoxious that people have brought this massive speaker onto the bus, but at the same time, you kind of be like, there's really nothing I can do about this. There's something about the fact that it's in somebody's phone, this tiny thing that we all have, and that they are using their free will to try and inflict this upon us in this tiny way. But this tiny issue is making such a massive sort of problem, if you like, on in those spaces. To me, it's something to do with that. There are certainly people who are being territorial in this way, but I think the vast majority of people are just not really that aware. And perhaps that's a lack of conscientiousness, or perhaps it's literally just a sort of, I'm just in my little bubble with my little media device. Why would I necessarily care about where the sound's going, whether it's going straight into my ears or around us?
Well, one thing which is nice is that it's like a rare thing. It sticks out. Like, it's not the rule that people loudcast, reflecting on it. Most people use headphones. They don't play anything at all. They raw dog it, as the kids say.
They do say that, don't they? Raw dogging the tube. It's great. I love it when I hear older generations say raw dogging as well.
Do you mean older generations?
Like, 60s, 70s.
I was older.
No, babe.
Not to sound... this is a massive cliche, so forgive me for saying it. Do you think lockdown made it worse that people are loudcasting?
Oh, great. We're on another post-pandemic podcast. So yeah, I do think you're right, though. If you think about it, like in the pandemic, pandemic really was when TikTok hit big as well, right? We were all doing that infinite scroll thing.
But yeah.
You're so cool, Jack.
Writing a book.
Yeah. I definitely was not writing a book. But certainly there was this kind of, we were all in our own spaces. We didn't really need to use headphones in the same way that we might have done when we were commuting a lot.
Yeah.
So perhaps that has travelled on. I don't know, though, if it's something slightly broader in that smartphones with their sort of speakers built in are a relatively recent thing.
Yeah.
If you think about the fact that, the Sony Walkman comes out in 1979. This is a sort of time where people are using headphones to kind of connect. They weren't built-in speakers in those things, so that was how you listen to it. Whereas, of course, when the smartphone comes out and we've got these built-in speakers, we kind of don't have the need for the headphones anymore. So it's in a way, it's kind of quite logical that people would just use the built-in technology.
1979, was that the Walkman? That's wild.
I know, it's a long time.
Yeah, it is. I dropped my phone recently, and now the phone at the part where you put it to the ear doesn't work. So I have to do all my calls on loudspeaker.
Ooh.
So that's not been good for the privacy of my nearest and dearest, and I do worry it's a bit obnoxious. But you don't think it's immoral, so I'll take that. But I could invest, here's a nice segue, in a new pair of headphones. I could take a little bit of home with me, couldn't I?
You could take your headphones with you. I think, a lot of people still do that in public spaces, as you say. It's just that there are occasionally these one or two people that spoil it for everyone else. But yeah, I think to me there is still a partiality that we get when we listen to something using our smartphone, that tinny sound. We don't kind of get that fullness of sound that we would get with, let's say, a pair of headphones as we're going down the street. So I think there is still a reason why people use those things. It's the sort of convenience versus experiential richness question, right?
There's something super intimate with listening with headphones as well, right? It does. You do feel close to the music. It literally feels like it's inside of your head. And when I listen to bands and artists, the sort of lyrics resonate with you in a different way when it's that close to you when you're wearing headphones. In a way that perhaps saying it out loud, maybe a stereo could do that if you're doing it privately. I'm not sure.
There's something that feels quite personal, quite directed about wearing headphones, right?
Yeah.
If you're listening to somebody's voice, if somebody's listening to our voices now, for example, it can feel so close to you. And as you say, if you kind of feel as though the sound is inside of your head as you're listening to it, that's quite weird.
And there's that extra part of it sealing you off from the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Like, especially if you put in like over ears or you put in some AirPods where the noise cancellation's really good. You do feel separate. You do feel like in a bubble.
Yeah.
Right. You feel protected.
There is a kind of protection to it, isn't there? I think, I've tried to think about how headphones function in terms of a sort of homely atmosphere that's cultivated. A lot of people use the word bubble to describe headphones, this sort of thing that you can move around.
I thought it was unique there in saying bubble.
Oh.
Everyone says bubble.
Well, a lot of people say bubble. Some people say cocoon, which I think is quite sweet, isn't it? No. You can one day turn into a beautiful butterfly.
I think of cocoons being quite gooey and gross and control. Yeah.
Okay. This is the sort of Rorschach test of headphone listening, is it? Right. But certainly, a home is characterized not only by the barriers it puts up, but also by what you kind of furnish it with, right? So if you're listening to familiar sounds, things that make you feel comfortable, of course, there's going to be a sort of homely dimension to it. But I think the other thing to remember is that homes aren't totally isolated, right? Yeah. They have doors. We have to get in and out, and we can invite people into our homes. Although homes are sort of, Steinbock, the philosopher, phenomenologist, says that there's a sort of sense that a home is characterized not only by its interior, but also by the alien outside. There's also always a kind of permeability, a perforation, if you like, from the inside world to the outside world. And I think the same thing's with headphones, right? If somebody's coming up to you in the street and you recognize them, you'll just pull your headphone out and talk to them, right? It's not that impossible. And I think sometimes this idea that there's this sort of hermetically sealed bubble that people are going round in with their headphones that's sort of cutting them off from the world, it's just a bit daft. It's not really true.
Yeah. Phonetically, you make it sound very nice as well, even just like the philosophy of headphone listening and sound, the words you're using to describe it. It's very beautiful.
Thanks,
I think here's something. It's the familiarity of the music as well, right? I listen to the same bands over and over again. Yeah. As I met you at the gates here, I was listening to the same band that I'd listened to for the last 18 years or something. Producer, what do you mean? Oh, is that?
That's just really nice. I love it.
Sympathy. Producer Paul, off screen, there he is. He's got some headphones on himself, listening to us. He was listening. He was telling me, encouraging me to listen to the 500 best albums of all time in the Rolling Stones. Pick the 500 albums, and he listened through all of them. And he's always encouraging me to listen to bands that I wouldn't usually listen to. And I think, leave me alone, Paul, right? I've got the bands that I like, and they make me feel good and familiar and put me in that place of ease and happiness. Yeah. So, is that a part of when I'm picking music to listen to and I'm making that homey cocoon, that it is familiar, that it wouldn't work if I was just picking any old band, if I was just pressing whatever the top played song is that week on Spotify.
Yeah, I think perhaps it's not just about the specific band, the specific song, but more about the kind of sound world, right? A lot of people, for example, won't listen to exactly the same podcast episode each time, but they would listen to similar sort of setups, similar speakers, similar sort of tones. We all have our favorite kinds of podcast, right? And the sort of, some people like them to be a bit angrier, and some people like them to be a bit softer and gentler and sweet and thoughtful, whatever. But certainly, nonetheless, there's a kind of character to those sonic worlds, if you like, that we're kind of accessing in this way.
ASMR, right? You're listening to some specific sounds. It might be, I don't know, like bubble wrap. It could be someone nibbling on your ear, and that sounds. I don't know why that one came to mind. It makes you feel.
This one we made earlier.
We're going to do that now.
Exactly.
We've brought in somebody to show you what that feels like. Paul?
Please.
No, so when someone's nibbling on your ear, it makes you feel tingly, right? And it makes you feel a certain way. Or when someone does bubble wrap in your ear. Or have you heard of Mukbang?
Oh, I love a mukbang.
Well, me and my fiance recently were with her friend in the city, and her friend pulled out a camera and started eating the food like in front of us and filming herself eating the food.
Wow.
And yeah, I felt I don't know how I felt about it.
I don't think
I do know, but I don't want to be rude. It made me feel uncomfortable.
I don't think I've ever met a mukbanger in the wild. It's very exciting. Yeah, so these things, certainly, they're kind of characterized, aren't they, by these intimate sounds, right? Yeah. So ASMR, as you say, the bubble wrap, the sort of the tingly feelings you get, often whispering is a sort of ASMR thing. Mouth sounds, gross. But this is also the case in mukbang, which is this sort of Korean phenomenon. Mukbang is a kind of portmanteau of the words for eating and broadcast, essentially. So it's a kind of combination of an eatcast. Some people think of them as a means of borrowing social presence in some way. It's quite comforting. If you're eating on your own, you've kind of got someone there eating along with you. But some of these videos are quite extreme, and it as with anything, there are the tamer versions of ASMR and mukbang.
What does that include? What would you put in tame?
Just sort of a bit less full on, a bit less
whispery, just doing
whispery. Whereas it gets, as you say, the sort of ear sucking, ear licking stuff, the kind of eating tentacles mukbang. Oh, I've watched so many videos, Jack.
Eating tentacles?
Yes.
That's gross.
Yeah, and they often have quite complex gendered undertones, who's doing the eating, who is meant to be the idealized viewer.
We don't do the woke stuff on here, Jacob. Stick to ASMR. Genders. No. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough. No gender. Yeah. So I think there are kind of all sorts of things that you can think about with this. Why is it that people are trying to, as it were, create some sense of intimate presence when they're on their own? Why are people turning to these kinds of media when they could just go and call their friends? Part of it seems to me to be about control of one's own environment, in a similar way to how we might use a pair of headphones in everyday life to control that sonic world. With listening to ASMR or mukbang, there is certainly a kind of way that you can access something whenever you want it, right?
Yeah. But why those sounds? It just seems really particular. Why wouldn't you just go around and play the sound of birds chirping in your ears instead of listening to an album? Why would you put headphones on and listen to someone eating tentacles? That does sound like it for a start, like, to add the Sartrean undertone, right? Sartre talks about the slime and the goo and the things that are alien like that, because one, he thinks they remind us of our mortality and that one day we will be slime as well and we'll return to the mud. But also these things carry diseases, evolutionarily speaking. So slimy tentacles aren't something I want to put in my mouth, and there's not something that I want to listen to or imagine when I'm going about. In the same way, I don't want to hear people screaming through my headphones when I'm walking around or feel tense or nervous. The sounds that I want to put in my head are the positive ones. But saying that out loud, I know that I hate like horror and scary stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I never understood why someone would want to sit there and be terrified.
But some
Is
people
it the same sort of thing?
Yeah, but some people are morbidly fascinated, aren't they? As you say, there's a kind of, perhaps you wouldn't want to eat the tentacle yourself, but you might be fascinated to watch someone doing it. And
why have you listened to the tentacle stuff just out of research?
I think I'm morbidly fascinated.
Yeah,
for me, there's no pleasure there at all. Like when people experience ASMR, this is a sort of autonomous sensory meridian response. It's supposed to be this kind of word for a tingly sensation that you feel down the back of your head and the back of your neck. And people often get it for in response to sonic cues and other cues that seem to specify closeness, intimacy, care.
Yeah.
And so listening to somebody eating, for example, specifies that they are quite close to you in virtual space, and so that can trigger it. You often see, though, that a lot of these people who watch the videos are commenting on them, saying things like, "I'm so proud of you, you are an eating idol."
Really?
And I'm fascinated by that. Why are they doing that?
Yeah, why do they reply those things? Yeah, the comments section in many ways are always a little bit peculiar, isn't it? But I suppose if you're into that sort of stuff, then like you say, you might have a morbid fascination, like eating. Do they say eating God? You just say like,
eating idol.
Eating idol.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for me. The intimacy can go both ways, right? It can give you that feeling of home, that feeling of comfort, that control over your environment, and that can have positive effects on you. Quite obviously, if not a positive in and of itself, it can go the other way with something more serious, like torture, auditory torture, putting headphones on someone or playing loud sounds at people in a form of, can be a form of mind control, right? You're constantly playing the same sounds through headphones. And I've read accounts through your work where people, they stop distinguishing what's the headphone sound and what's their own thought. And that seems like an extraordinarily like malicious and a kind of fascinating way to think about the use of them.
It is strange, isn't it, to think about sound as something that we have no control over. You know, we were speaking earlier about things like people playing things out loud on the bus or something like this. You don't have control over it. In this way, your sound is almost weaponized, right? So you get these accounts from the 1950s, for example, where lots of people are kind of interested even now in what they called Project MK Ultra at the time, which was this campaign, sort of, clandestine campaign financed by the CIA and, members of the UK and Canada, in response to sort of fears about what was happening in Soviet and sort of Chinese prisons, essentially. So thinking about how brainwashing, so to speak, might be achieved. And one of the scientists working on this, very, very peculiar person called Ewan Cameron, Canadian guy at McGill, in the 1950s, did these experiments with his psychiatric patients who would, do talking therapies with him, and he would record those therapeutic sessions and pick a clip that was the most difficult for them to listen to, and then play it back to them on repeat.
Oh, wow.
The idea, he called it psychic driving.
Like helping people with it.
Supposedly, it would be a way of, you internalize it to such a degree that it no longer troubles you. This was his thwarted, or at least, bizarre logic. And so he then, as with all of these things, be it a mukbang video or whatever, it became extreme. He then decided, right, instead of playing it on repeat for 4 hours, I'll play it for 16 hours. Instead of playing it through speakers, I'll play it through headphones, because that will make them focus on it more.
Yeah.
And you get accounts from he writes up in his own accounts of those on whom he tried out these horrible techniques, saying, it sounds like a voice in my head. It's horrible. I can hear everything about it. I can hear all the stuttering, all the nerves. And this, essentially, there's no causal trajectory that you can make between any practices, but you then see the use of headphones as well in the second half of the 20th century and beyond in different scenarios of especially interrogation for political means. So, yeah, I mean, I've written about...
It's happening now as well, like you call it auditory torture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it a common practice now?
Yeah, I think there are, not verified, but accounts coming out at the moment in different parts of the world.
Where's it happening?
Supposedly in Israel, there have been cases of sonic torture recently. Sednaya prison, a notorious prison in Syria, a project by Amnesty International and Forensic Architecture that sort of maps out this prison, which was, a notorious torture prison, as they called it. And sound is a part of that.
In Syria. But in Israel, they've been torturing people with...
So the stories go. I mean, it depends on who you believe, but...
What kind of stuff do they do in these modern day torture? I think this might be a meme rather than something that actually happens, but picking songs that are sort of bad or cheesy songs on the radio and playing them over and over and over again. And then people picking their torture songs, right?
Yeah.
The song you hate.
That definitely became a sort of point of fascination in about 2004.
Yeah.
So this was in the so-called War on Terror, where in 2004 the Abu Ghraib photos were released. These were photos of US troops and military personnel torturing those in dark prisons as part of the War on Terror. Yeah. And at that point, it was sort of discovered or became public knowledge that the US were using very loud music as a form of torture.
Yeah.
People became fascinated by this and started sort of jokingly producing these torture playlists. But you actually find from the accounts that, yes, to some degree, there is a kind of the cultural meaning of the music, what music it is, etc. Does matter. But actually, it's a lot more to do with the repetition, the loudness of it, the physical and psychological pain that is caused by this. It's a really interesting documentary, actually, featuring the guy who wrote the theme tune for Sesame Street, who finds out that Sesame Street was being used in Guantanamo Bay as part of this arsenal of torture techniques. And he goes on this, I don't know, sort of, it's quite emotional journey of working out what it means that this totally harmless, innocent piece that he wrote is being used to such malign ends.
How does it go, the Sesame Street theme?
Da, 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 da. No?
Yeah, I can see why that would be torturous.
So true.
I imagine there's some kind of like convention or human rights law which prevents this kind of torture. Can't just be. It's not just physical torture which is outlawed, right? Or auditory as well.
It's complicated, basically.
Is that why they do it? They think there's a workaround.
Yeah, in a lot of these cases, in a lot of the sort of there are hints in the manuals, for example. That were published by the US, that this is a form of what people call no-touch torture. It's torture, as it were, that doesn't leave physical marks on the body, and therefore it's quite difficult to prove that it's happened at all. And this is partly, something to do, I guess, more broadly with what constitutes legal evidence. What are the kinds of things that stand up in court as empirical evidence? And the effect of sonic torture, ultimately it's just, his word against theirs or whatever. So it's a very complex issue legally, and there are certainly people who are trying to change that, but the relationship between sound and the law is quite complicated.
Okay, let's move away from torture.
Thank God.
It's a bit too bleak, isn't it? Maybe to something more optimistic in music and sound, like cultivating identity. I saw that the aesthetician Bensei Nene, who's is a big name, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Everyone loves him in your field.
Everyone loves him. Everyone sort of was very entertained by the fact that in his very short introduction to aesthetics, he says, aesthetics just isn't the philosophy of art. It's just whether or not you find things, around you pleasing. And I was thrilled by that definition.
Why?
Well, because, so many people think that aesthetics is the domain of very serious scholars like Roger Scruton. And, yes, he still is what everybody reads in musicology, his aesthetics of music. Whereas, of course, actually the kind of the everyday reality of aesthetics is so important.
Yeah.
We love Bensei Nane.
Yeah, I can see why. He's a good lad. And in his book, the same book you're referencing here, Bensei Nane says, when people are asked about what they value and what makes them feel like the same person, if you woke up tomorrow, he says, and you have different political views, moral views to different family, you'd feel less like yourself, but not as much as if your music changed. That music was the thing that people held to be the most important thing to their sense of identity, which is it's really interesting, right? Yeah. Do you think that it has that special place? Rightfully, why does it have that special place?
I think music certainly does have such value for people in that it is a form of enabling so many things, be that kind of enabling other things that you can do alongside it, listening to music at the gym, whatever else it is, but also kind of enabling us to do emotional work as well, right? We often will put on a song that reminds us of a period or something like this. Music has, as it were, many uses for us, but those uses are more than simply, picking up something like a tool or taking a tablet or a pill or something like this and just, being able to immediately change things. It's more complex than that, right? It's something, it creates a sort of, I'm obsessed with space, but music enables the creation of a different kind of space for us. You can create atmospheres and ambiances with music as well. When we think about value in music and the philosophy of music a lot, we tend to get stuck on this issue of what is valuable music, which often has to do with sort of Western classical music, that being the valuable stuff because it's above, so to speak, the commercial. It doesn't function in any sort of instrumentalized way. Not a great word to use actually with music, but it doesn't have this tool-like capacity, right? Music, and apparently popular music really does have that, and therefore popular music is less valuable to some philosophers. I think that's a load of rubbish.
Do you? There's no higher pleasures here. It's all just pushpin's as good as poetry.
No.
I ranked up an ungodly amount of time on Spotify, as I do each year.
Oh.
I hit 160,000-ish minutes.
Oh my God.
It's a fair few, isn't it?
How do you actually do that?
I think that's 110 or 100 days. Because I don't have a job, right? My job is to sit and write or do things. So I'm constantly just able to use headphones, listen to music, do a fair bit of driving.
What do you listen to?
Same stuff over and over and over again.
Like vocal music with vocals, music with lyrics.
Yeah, but also it adds to it because I do white noise when I go to sleep.
Right.
So I wake up with the same playlist every day, like it's ready, it just comes on automatically. And then I've got a normal morning playlist, and then when I'm working, I'll listen. I put the gym in there. I thought I was going to say the gym now. I'm going to the gym.
See, I only listen to podcasts at the gym.
Yeah,
I can't listen to music.
I like shows at the gym. Like if I was when I used to go and I'd be on the treadmill, I put a show on there. Yeah, but not anymore.
I suppose that does you kind of get immersed in that world, don't you, a little bit more? But
yeah, could be antisocial though. Yeah, negative. Again, when I met you at the gate, I was wearing headphones, and I had a moment. I thought maybe you might think this is rude. I should take them out.
I just always think you're rude anyway, really, Jack, don't I? So,
no,
you didn't. No, and we walked along in silence, and I'm surprised you're talking to me now. But yeah, I think there is is often this image of the headphone listener as antisocial, as a lot of people use the word zombie to describe headphones, and this is actually the moral panic that happens from the advent of the Walkman in the late 70s, early 80s to the present day. People are still talking so much about this kind of antisocial, they can't hear where they're going, they're going to get knocked over by a bus, they're going to, whatever. And I think there is a truth to it, right? We know that you can create these almost sonic walls with your headphones that block you off from the wider environment.
Yeah.
A lot of people working in this sort of more philosophical angle on sound and technology think that disconnect from the world speaks to a broader sort of...
I knew they would. I had a feeling this was going to happen.
Yeah, change in the way that we are as social beings, that there's a kind of move towards being atomized, not being concerned with community anymore.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Because it seemed, if you think of Walkman, 80s, 90s, it doesn't seem like we've got the same big drop off as when everyone got smartphones. It seems like it's arguing about a molehill when we're standing next to a mountain.
Like William Gibson said that putting on headphones did more for virtual reality than anything else, right? Because you're kind of navigating your everyday world with these headphones on. I don't know. Is it okay to be a fence sitter here? Because I genuinely do understand why people are concerned about headphones, but I do think it's a bit of a straw man argument with headphones that, they seem to represent this idea of being isolated and locked off from the wider world. But of course, in a lot of my work and certainly in a lot of my experience myself, headphones aren't perfect walls. I can still hear things through them. And it's so easy to break those walls down, to pull a headphone out, to turn your music off, whatever it is. I think it's too extreme to imagine that headphones are causing this kind of extreme isolationism among the population.
Do you want to talk about porn?
I always want to talk about porn.
Not a porn guy myself.
Oh. You would say that on the podcast, though, wouldn't you?
No, I've been a few years, I think, since I took a strong feminist turn.
You could just watch gay porn.
Well, I started saying I was porn free. I said I've been porn free 5 or 6 years, and then someone said it sounds like you were really addicted, so I'm not using that phrase anymore.
You're a reformed,
But I was speaking to someone recently, and they were saying that 90% of men are the users for things like Pornhub, video and image-based porn.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to erotica, literary, I think it's called smut.
Oh, yes.
Smut? What's smut mean?
Smut is a kind of genre of fan fiction. Often you have smutty fan fiction. Fan fiction is where fans of something write these stories about.
What's it stand for? It's the word smut? Or is it just a full word?
It's just, we could probably do a backronym like port out, starboard home or whatever, but I think it's literally just like, smutty, like dirty, naughty.
And women tend to, like I say, read erotica or listen to things,
it, right? Yeah. There's been this huge... There are platforms like Quinn and Dipsy which do these special audio erotica that...
That's like doing an advert now. Yeah. Mid-break.
That are, supposedly designed for women.
Yeah.
Because often there's some fascinating work on this. Often these audio erotica episodes aren't this sort of straight to terrible acting pornography, no real narrative except the sort of male ejaculation narrative, if you like. These are much more drawn out, often domestic.
Yeah, but if that was in video, right, that wouldn't seem to... You could just, if that was the reason, you could just do long form films. And women would sit down and watch a film, or maybe with 50 Shades. And
it's true.
Is it a trilogy? Is it? They did 2 more.
50 Shades is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I've actually never read 50 Shades of Grey, but I have watched Heated Rivalry.
I don't know what that is.
Fair enough. So yeah, I think what is exciting about audio erotica is often that it's in the second person, or there's a kind of second person subject position there. So a person will talk, hey babe, and leave gaps where they ask you a question, and it's sort of as though you could reply if you wanted to. I've no idea if anybody does. It'd be quite funny if they did, I suppose. But they'll sort of, how was your day? Can I do the dishes? And you're like, wow, is this really erotic fantasy when it's just men doing the bare minimum household chores, but apparently it is. It's quite a fascinating thing. I think whenever I listen to it, it's with this more scholarly perspective, of course. Sure. And so I often find it a little bit awkward, as of course these things would make you feel awkward. But I can imagine if somebody were in the right headspace, they might really enjoy it. You know, it feels very directed, very personal, very suited for headphones because there's a secrecy to it. There's a sort of clandestine sort of, I don't know.
Like I was reading, not to higher the bar, I was reading Augustine's Confessions recently, and he said, someone reflecting on them said, the sin is always in the back alley, out of the way. You don't have the strip club in the middle of the fanciest mall in the city.
Indeed.
In the same way, headphone listening and that sort of intimate, private thing, something which is private in your bedroom rather than out on the street, and the same with headphones.
Totally right. And I mean, confession is such a good word to bring into this.
Thank you.
We talk, that's okay. I think you're amazing. It's really a pleasure to be here. We also talk about, I'm obviously going to go wokerati on you and say Foucault, but, Foucault writes about confession as well in similar kinds of ways. When we think about what confession is, it's a kind of opening up of the self and making vulnerable, right? So when pop stars like Taylor Swift perform in a confessional way and they seem to be confessing, who are they confessing to? Well, it's this sort of idealized listener who is potentially in the space, or I don't know, the kind of subject position of being her friend, her confidant. And so in Taylor Swift opening herself out, making herself vulnerable, we as the listener trust her more. There's a kind of bond that we have with her in this, to use a more recent term that's come into fruition, parasocial relationship, right? It's almost like it's a social invitation. And I think it really is mediated by confession.
Well, with people like Taylor Swift and live bands and artists now, they often wear headphones on stage.
Yeah, that's true.
And to hear the sound better. And if they're hearing the sound of their instruments and their fellow bandmates, they might be creating those bubbles. The band has a bubble, which is somehow separate from the crowd.
I think you're so right. Absolutely. There was a gorgeous interview with Kate Bush in 2016, a couple of years after she did her big, comeback shows, 40 years after her previous tour or whatever it was. And she talks about the fact that in the 70s, she used on-stage monitors, speakers that come out at you on the stage. But now, because of, she was constantly moving around, there were so many moving parts, she used the in-ear monitors, as we call them. And she said, they're amazing. You can hear yourself perfectly wherever you are on the stage. You can hear all the band members as much as you want. You can change the levels as you go along. Incredible.
Yeah. But
she felt a total disconnect from the audience. And she said at the end of the evening, her favourite part of the night was being able to take them out and to almost, she described it in terms of breath, to feel to the atmosphere of the audience come in, past this wall, as it were, this barrier that had been built up by her in-ear monitors. And I suppose in a way that's kind of the most convincing argument that headphones really are isolating in some way.
So not using in-ears, a positive thing for like that. I guess a gig is a really powerful thing for community, with bonding with your fellow human being. You feel that when you go to a show, right? And so if you feel like knowing that the artists have got in-ears, it does feel more simulated, less intimate. That interpersonal, intersubjective experience is lacking. Is it the threads are somehow broken or frayed? So what's your recommendation? Just take them out. Let's all get together and take out our headphones and all get along.
I don't know. It's so funny because I love a silent disco. Like, I absolutely love them.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No one's ever said that.
But one of my mentors, who was a very, very senior professor, described silent discos as communal masturbation sessions because everybody's focused in on their own sonic richness, the richness of their experience, but they're doing it together. A similar kind of thing happens with, have you ever gone to a theatre production in which audience members wear headphones?
No, I don't go to the theatre.
Oh, right. No, of course, you're just writing your books. Yeah, I forgot.
Everyone's got the limits.
Yeah, writing your books and definitely not watching porn. But headphone theatre often works, and you know, I'm doing a interview study about it at the moment, where people are talking to me about how they feel so special.
Yeah.
Because often there's a kind of person on the stage interacting with one of these binaural head microphones, which are shaped like a sort of dummy of a human head, and they have microphones in both the ears. They simulate the spatial relationship you might have with a real person. So you can see them over there on the stage, but you can hear them so close to you in your ears. It feels like you have the best seat in the house, sonically at least. To me, that's quite fascinating. I mean, lots of people might see it as a bit of a gimmick, and I think silent discos too have that gimmicky kind of aspect to them, but maybe in a way I would just love to wear headphones all the time.
Yeah, I think me too. I do like them.
Is that because you're an antisocial zombie?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got along well enough, but even conversations like this must come to an end. Jay Kingsbury-Downs, where can people find you? What are you selling?
So subscribe down below, and what did you do? Swipe right to give us a hype. Is that what everybody says?
I don't know what you're talking about.
On YouTube.
Sure. That sounds good.
I work at the University of Oxford. You can find me in an exciting lecture course soon.
Are you trying to sell the University of Oxford to people?
God, I mean, if
Isn't
anyone
that desperate
will
at
buy
the
it.
university at the moment? Oxford professors are just out here just begging people to take a course.
Please. Yeah. No, but you know, music's, as you know, in higher education going really well at the moment.
Is your pitch come to the University of Oxford and listen to music? Have you got a book out?
I'm writing a couple of books at the moment.
Great.
One's about headphones, the other one's about illusions of digital intimacy.
Cool. When do they come out and who with?
God, who knows? One of them's coming out with Bloomsbury, the other one I can't tell you.
Oh, wow,
yet.
that's great. Congratulations.
Thanks. What about you? How many books do you have? 70,000.
Right. Thank you very much, Jacob.